Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for watching. This is Martin Rogers. This is a recording that I'm playing out live on Facebook. Why am I playing out a recording live on Facebook? Because I've been tasked with sharing my origin story, talking about what was the journey that got me to where I am today. And part of that challenge is also to launch a new podcast called Entrepreneur's Survival Guide. And in that, I want to share stories of my challenges, successes, tactics, strategies, and other people's stories as well about where they've come from, how they've got to where they are today, and what challenges they see in the future and how they plan to overcome that. So I'm really excited about all this new stuff that I'm launching. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to you through the story. It's a little bit scripted because there's so much personal stuff in there. I wanted to make sure I got the essence of the story out. And I hope out there it helps share maybe some insight that challenges are set to push us forward, and nothing in to get where you want to be in life. It's not easy. It's never easy. But these things make us stronger. You know, if we go to the gym and we just looked at the equipment, our muscles wouldn't get any stronger at all. We have to get on that equipment. And sometimes the challenges that life gives to us is like a gym workout, or certainly that's how I perceive. So here we go. Let's start recording the podcast. Hi, I'm Martin Rogers. Welcome to the first episode of the Entrepreneur's Survival Guide. You may be wondering a little bit about how I came to be here with you today. Well, the first part of this journey, and this journey has been epic so far, with ups and downs, to say the least. And there's been many critical stages along the way. And in this episode, I'm just going to talk to you probably about the very first stage of my early life, about what started me on a journey of personal development, of striving to achieve, of overcoming some of the barriers that were in my way. So the first start of the journey all started back in about 1998. It was the day I discovered that my life wasn't going to be what I thought it was. It was the day I'd found out that my kidneys weren't going to last much longer, and I only had a short time before dialysis was needed. I'd been going to the doctors regularly for quite a while, probably since about the age of 13, and I'd always had this impression that my kidneys were fairly stable and my Crohn's disease was fairly stable and life was going to be reasonable with some of its alright challenges. So when I visited this new doctor and I sat down and he told me that kidneys weren't going to last as long, and dialysis was on the cards very soon, it came as such a surprise. You see, from about 1992, when I was 13, I'd become rather poorly. Initially, my mum thought it was an eating disorder and threatened me with the doctors in the hope that that would get me to eat, but it didn't, and I accepted the doctors, and we soon threw that idea out of the window. And regular hospitals visits had become the norm. It actually took more than 4 years and lots of tests in places that I won't mention for the sake of this podcast, or to get a diagnosis about what was going on. I remember over those past 4 years, though, my mum had always been a rock of support, attending hospital appointments with me and just being there by my side. I don't know whether you've got a friend or a relative who just knows what you like and what you need in these kind of times. We often didn't speak when we was attending the hospital or walk into the hospital. Even at the appointments, we often just sat there in silence, and that's what I wanted. And my mum knew that. I don't know how she knew that, because I never told her that's what I wanted. Well, I guess that's just mums for you. She was always there, though, by my side, a reassuring certainty of strength, a rock to say the least. But over the years, when I started to get to adulthood, I started going by myself. So I was about 18 now, and I went to the hospital, both for my chronic kidney disease and my Crohn's. Each appointment would follow the similar sort of routine. Health wasn't great, but it was stable and manageable. I'd walk in, the doctor would be like, "How you doing?" I'd be like, "I'm fine. I've got this challenge and this challenge, but overall it's fine. They'd look at the blood tests and say, yes, this is this, and we maybe need to adjust your medication like this. And I'd be on my way, and I'd say hello to the nurses and walk out, and we'd carry on. And I'd got my head around the fact that was the norm. That I wasn't ever going to get discharged. Over the 4 years, I'd come to realise that I was never going to be discharged from the hospital, and that was life. So. Then there was this one appointment. I saw a new doctor. My previous one had gone into retirement. I don't know whether I'd aged him. He was a very mature man, shall we say, a very classic old-style doctor. And this guy was a new kid on the block, young, fresh, Dr. McIntyre. And I sat down, I went in, and he sat opposite me, a much taller chap than me, but that's not really that difficult. And to one side there was a window, and on the side of the window you had a courtyard where inpatients could go and walk and around the gardens. Back in those days, smoke, I guess. Some of them would have smoked back inside the hospital ground. And as he sat, he looked at me, and there was a bit of a conversation, and some of it's blank. I've got to admit, I've lost memory, or I never stored some of the memories there. And he said something along the lines of, Martin, we need to start looking at the plan for dialysis. Turning my head and looking out the window, I kind of just went into this robot mode. I was very young looking at the time, and something that I didn't actually like looking so young, if I'm honest. People would say I would when I got older, and I do. I miss those days now. I look a lot older. But anyway, I wanted to always make sure that I appeared adult and I appeared mature, and that I knew what was going on and I fully understood what was going on. So after a very short time, I looked back and I just kind of switched off my emotions. I went back into this robot mode, and I didn't want to let him know it was a surprise to me. It took me just that moment, and I just kind of nodded in agreement, and I went along with the conversation about how the journey would then go, and how I'd be introduced to a transplant nurse who would be a pinnacle person in my life. And he explained all the journey, and from there it becomes a bit of a blur. The rest of the appointment is a real blur, and I don't really remember much. I often try to remember the whole sequence of events, but only specific areas are burnt into my memory. I guess that must be because they're the significant parts. They're the parts that I really attach the emotion to. My memory really comes back when I was driving home. I was driving my dad's white Astra, and I just turned a corner onto a very sharp bend with an uphill, so there was some gear movement to go on, and something must have played, some music must have just triggered off my emotions, and they switched. I remember as I turned that sharp corner, the tears started falling. Reality rained down on me, a bit like a flash flood of rain, really. My eyes just poured, and I sobbed my heart out, kind of saying, why me? Why was I being punished with this? It came down so fast, and a bit like, when it rains, your wipers go so fast back and to, and they make no difference to how much you can see. I can remember that's what it was like. There was tears flooding so much, and I felt that was the end of life, really, as I knew it, and that I wouldn't really have much of a life. And I felt powerless to do anything but accept my fate. But I continued driving. At the time, I was trying to find a meaning in everything that was going on and take back control. I was so angry with the universe, God or something. Not being really religious. I don't know why I was angry at God, but I spoke to him a lot during this period, or whoever. And I'd always had a rebellious side. If somebody told me I couldn't do something, then a fire would light up inside me. I decided that my illness was not going to stop me. I was going to be successful. I was going to make my parents proud and do something in my life. I wasn't going to let it win. It was like a game, like a competition, and I knew somehow I could win. I was determined to win and not let it win. So And that kind of thought process and that kind of mentality had been developed at school, I guess. Being in a little school had not been fun. My friends didn't want to hang out with me, and they drifted away. Who wants to hang out with a poorly kid who can't really play out at night and is a bit lethargic and not that much fun? At the same time, I was prescribed steroids, prednisolone steroids, Smarties, as I heard one doctor refer to them. And they made me rather large, rather quickly, because they increase your appetite and you can just eat and eat and eat. And they make you feel great, and that's awesome. But I put on a lot of weight in these last few years at school. And strangely enough, that meant that bullying was led and came in at that time. And so all these things were going on, and I left school with mediocre qualifications and not enjoying school and everything else that was going on. I wanted to go and get a job. I was determined to get a job and start to make a success of it. And no matter how ill I felt, no matter what day it was, I would go into work. My mum was really not happy with me getting this job because I was 16. I said I'd just do it as a summer job, but I continued on there. It was a full-time job. It was a sales assistant at Jacobs Photographic. We used to book in the camera films and send them off for processing to get physical prints with physical films. So if somebody's watching this below the age of about 25, you probably don't know what I mean by a film that goes in the back of a camera. But even at this young age, despite my health challenges, I got a real buzz from helping people and getting a thank you from people and showing them the cameras and what the cameras could do for them, and then being really grateful and doing a service to giving a service to other people. I got a real thrill from that. And then I was getting more and more sick, frustrated and lonely because I'd go into work and when I come home I was tired. I didn't socialise much. I was so frustrated at my body and mind not being the way I wanted them to be, not being able to allow me to do what I wanted to do. So dialysis started, a year or so later, and I was, I think, about 19 by this point. So I'd managed to keep at work, go to work every day, no matter what, no matter how poorly I was. I'd started to get a sense of achievement. This dialysis came along, and when you're on dialysis and you go there at least 3 times a week, and my heart goes out to anybody that's still on dialysis these days. That is, you're on the machine for at least 4 hours if it's hemodialysis. That means you're giving up at least 20 hours of your life a week. And there was always this voice that told me that I was meant for something more. I don't know whether everybody else gets that. And it sounds, I'm not sure what the right word is, but it sounds, I don't know, like... but anyway, I wanted to find a way to be and do more. And as you can imagine, I was in a bad shape and quite desperate by this point, but I wasn't ready to give up on my dream of having a meaningful life where I achieved something and I made my parents proud. So I decided to start using the dialysis time. I remember going into one dialysis and I was sat in this big chair. It's a bit like a dentist chair, but with loads more padding because you have to be dead comfy because you sat there still for 4 hours. Luckily, I had kind of what they call a permacath, which comes out here and it allows you to plug straight into the machine. Other people have needles put in their arms. I won't go too graphic in case anybody's a bit squeamish. I can remember the nurse plugging me into the washing machine to clean my blood and looking down, and there's this book. It's about that thick as such paperback book, and it was How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, which sounds a bit corny and cheesy, I know, but I read that book and every line of that book hit me. Every line of that book made a difference to how I felt and how I thought. And I read it rather quickly, I guess. Maybe 1 or 2 sessions. I wasn't the quickest reader, but that was quite quick for me. And my thoughts, they changed into a positive of what can be achieved, what I can do. And it was like a blast of fresh air. It gave me hope. It changed everything. It changed how I perceived life, how I perceived what I can achieve, what could be done. It gave me a glimpse of how to take control of my life using my mind, how to influence me, those around me, to have a better life. It created hope and not allow me, my illness, to hold me back. It allowed me to dream of a future that I was excited about. It allowed me to help myself to have some power. And that set me in my life in a direction I could only have dreamed of at the time, and I didn't know what was round the corner. It wasn't long after the journey of personal development started, I got promoted to assistant manager at the Nottingham branch. And then some other things started to happen, which this journey had set me on, and it's almost like I'd manifested it into my life. I was starting to have some real amazing things happen. But my job was we'll come on to that in another episode, I'm sure. My job had become everything, and I was totally absorbed by it. It was where I was useful and liked. I felt important and significant there. Something I'd never felt before, or something certainly in my memory I couldn't remember. I'm sure there was lots of times when I felt that way, but not in recent memory at that time. But this was just first part of the journey, and from these challenging times I had ultimately learned that no matter what, you can take control and make a difference. So that was the first stage of what led to where I am today. Someone who wants to help other people to achieve by my achievements. That's not really how I wanted to say it. I want to help other people achieve so I can be successful. I want to create a legacy for my family, security for my family in case something happens to me. I want to make a difference while I'm here. And it's not been easy, and I've not been perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And the journey isn't complete yet. And there were some other critical moments along the journey. But what I wanted to tell you about today is that first step about this journey. And in future episodes, I'll tell you about the further stages and some really amazing people that have helped make the journey very special.